everybody, Zombie Firearms Instructor. So today's the day. We're going to talk about which is better, a 1911 or the Glock. First up, we're going to talk about the 1911. As the name suggests, it was designed and developed in 1911 by John Browning. John Browning also invented some other firearms you may have heard of, like the BAR, or the Browning Automatic Rifle, which was the first squad automatic weapon developed for the United States military. The 45 Colt, or the 1911 Colt, there's many different versions of it. For the point of their names for this, for the purposes of this video, we're going to call it the 1911. The 1911 was initially chambered in 45 ACP. It was utilized by the United States military in World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and finally was phased out of service in 1985 for the M9, or what is known in the civilian market as the Beretta 92F. So this firearm literally almost served the United States military for a century. It is extremely rugged, it is extremely well built, it's a genius when you actually look at the components and think about what had been invented by the time John Browning started tinkering around with this thing. It's an exquisite firearm. This version I'm showing you right now is a Springfield Armory version that's an exact replica of what was issued to the United States military. So there's other companies that make these that are extremely well made, like Kimber. A lot of folks really like those. Personally, I like the old military style ones, but that's just me. Nowadays you can get 1911s chambered in other calibers rather than 45 ACP. You can have them chambered in 9mm, 10mm, 380, there's multiple types. But initially they were only 45 ACP. In 45 ACP the magazine carries 7 to 8 rounds, and you can put one more in the pipe, so 9 to 8 rounds depending. There's also extended magazines that will extend out a little bit below the handle of the firearm but will carry more ammunition. What is usually looked at as the greatest selling point of the 1911, besides its reliability, is its stopping power. When this is chambered for the 45 ACP, it's an absolutely devastating round. Drawbacks of the 1911. Also, the ammo capacity is relatively low. You're going to hear about that when we talk about the Glock. Another issue with it is it does have a tendency, if you haven't cleaned it, it will start jamming on you. It's not like an AK where you can just treat it like crap. And you know, some folks will argue that with me. They say that with the better made models like the Kimbers, for example, you don't have to clean them as much. Honestly, I clean my firearms after each use, so I can't take the Pepsi challenge on that one. But my advice to you as a firearms instructor is to clean your firearms regularly, especially after each use. Alright, next we're going to talk about the Glock. Now, there's multiple different versions of Glocks. They started to grow into prominence in 1982. They were a polymer framed firearm. That was initially what really attracted a lot of people to them. They were picked up very quickly by law enforcement, military forces worldwide since 1982. There's millions and millions of these have been manufactured. Basically, every police force in the United States, at least some of the officers are going to be equipped with Glocks. They're that common. This is a Gen 3 Glock 17. This is actually the first Glock I ever bought. This one is chambered in 9mm. It has a couple of additions on there, just to be clear, a couple of things I've done on this, like it has a extra grip down here so it's easier to rack. Because of the Gen 3s, I always thought the slide was didn't have very good styrations in there to grab the upper slide, so I added this thing on there, and I've also replaced the recoil spring with something a little stronger. But aside from that, it is just a regular Glock 17. This is Glock 19X, which Gen 5, which this is a lower from a Glock 17 and an upper from a Glock 19. So you get the ammo capacity with the little shorter barrel. Instead of having a 4.5 inch barrel, you have a 4.04 inch barrel with the Glock 19X. So it's a little bit shorter, but yet you still get the ammo capacity that you would get with a Glock 17. Standard ammunition capacity for a Glock 17 is 17 rounds. And if you put one in the pipe, that'll be 18 rounds. That's standard capacity. That's what I was talking about when I'm talking about ammunition capacity. With the Glock, you can have a 17 round magazine, and the Glock 19, even the 45 caliber version of the Glock carries 13 rounds in the magazine as opposed to the 7 to 8 that you get in the 1911 magazine. In a gunfight, especially nowadays, ammunition capacity is a big deal. Typically when you see shootouts with Glocks, if they're not law enforcement, with law enforcement you see a lot more reloads, especially tactical reloads. But with civilian encounters or self-defense type shootings, you very rarely see the need of a reload with a Glock. There have been times, a few times, where I've seen shootings, self-defense shootings with 1911s where a magazine change was needed or the person ran out of ammunition. Those are just personal experiences that I know. Glock has gotten a lot of credit for developing the first polymer firearm, and that's actually not correct. They did not design the first mostly polymer firearm. That was actually Heckler & Koch that did that, or H&K. And they did that several years before Glock did it. However, I think we can argue that Glock perfected it with the firearms that they've come out with. I've used Glocks for about 21 years now, and I have nothing but the highest opinion of them. The Glock 19X, in my personal opinion, is the greatest firearm I've ever fired, greatest pistol I've ever fired. I'm better with this pistol than I've ever been with any other in my life. And so there's, and that's dependent on the shooter. So there's just something about this firearm that for whatever, we're married together really well for some reason. And I know many other people that feel the same way about their 1911s. They feel very comfortable with that firearm, and they just prefer to carry it. They prefer to have that. They don't like Glocks. One of the selling points or bad points to a Glock is people call it plastic, so it's very light, but it's actually a lightweight polymer, so it's tougher than plastic, but it is a very lightweight firearm. So people that are used to the older steel metal firearms feel this and they're like, it's a toy. I don't want that. I want an actual firearm with some oomph to it. So again, that goes down to personal preference. If you like to have a firearm that's a bit lighter, Glock's the way to go. If you like something with a little extra weight to it, then you're going to want a 1911. Those are the big differences. A couple other differences about the Glock as opposed to 1911. The Glock does not have a manual safety. There are safeties in here, a drop safety, a trigger safety, things like that, but there is no manual safety that you have to flip to fire a round. Now, with the 1911, that's a different story. You do have a safety. You have it right here on the side. So you can put it down, boom, pull the trigger. Now, quite honestly, when I carry my 1911, I keep the safety off. So I holster it while it's safe, and then I take the safety off while it's in there. That's a personal preference. I like as few steps between drawing a firearm and shooting as possible. So that's why I do that. But again, it's personal preference. If you feel more comfortable keeping the safety on, then please do that. There's really no right or wrong answer on that. So, which is better? Out of these two firearms, which is better? Are you ready? Probably going to lose a lot of friendships over this. It depends. It depends on the shooter. It really does. There is no right or wrong in this, in my opinion. They're both outstanding firearms. If you prefer to have a 1911, you don't like internal hammers, you like the fact that it has a manual safety, you like the fact that it's been in 2 world wars, more power to you. The 45 ACP round is devastating, and if that's what you like about the 1911, then I say go with it. My advice for you is if you're going to carry a 1911 for self-defense, carry an extra magazine. Be sure you do, because the ammunition capacity on these is not the largest. So bear that in mind. You're going to need to keep a reload on you. Now, to the Glock. The Glock is an outstanding firearm, of course. I have a very high opinion of them. There are a couple drawbacks with the Glock, however. If you do not have a good, firm, proper grip on it and you fire it, there's a good chance it's going to jam. The Glock really needs a nice, firm platform to fire. properly to cycle. You'll see a lot of videos of body cam of police officers where they have to pull their Glock and fire from an unusual position, or what we typically call like an instinctual shooting, where you can just pull it, get it out of the holster and fire, and that's about it. You don't have time to aim and fire. If you watch a lot of those videos, you'll notice that the Glocks tend to jam. If you don't have two hands on the gun, or at least one hand with a firm grip on it, they tend to jam. So that is an issue with Glock. You're going to need to make sure that when you're using this firearm, you have a very, very good grip on it. Okay? Otherwise, you can jam it. So another thing that you're going to have to do, if you're a Glock person, is you're going to have to practice your immediate action drills. Clearing jams, tap rack assess, you know, clearing double feeds, all that. So get yourself some dummy ammunition, some snap caps, and practice, because that is a problem with the Glocks. Glocks don't typically jam a lot because they're dirty. They're kind of, I call them, this is just what I call them, they're kind of like the AK of the handgun world. A lot of people say the Makarov is, and that's probably more accurate, but the Glock is a lot like an AK. It will take a lot of abuse and it will shoot dirty. 1911 can be a little bit more temperamental. So that's just goods and bads of both of them. There are pros and cons with both of them, but they're both outstanding firearms. Where I stand as a professional is they're both great, and it's up to the individual shooter. It's up to you what you like best. Do you like the 1911? Do you like the Glock? It's up to you. Whatever firearm you choose, or if you're like me and you chose both, practice with them, go to the range, get good with them, learn their flaws, learn their pros, and be safe. Hope I didn't lose any friends with this one. Zombie out.